Welcome to Backyard Bows. Hey, welcome to Backyard Bows. I'm Brandon. This is the Basic Bowman episode 3 where we're going to help you dress your bow. First episode, help you pick out a bow shop, maybe have some manufacturers in mind, a couple things to bring with you. After the second episode, hopefully you're a little bit more familiar with the actual bow itself. And then the third video, we're gonna go over all the accessories that you need on your bow and the few that you're gonna need to purchase that do not attach to your bow. And we'll categorize them from 1 to 7 and what we think is the most important down to what we think is the least important. So first on my list is a rangefinder. Okay, they come in all different price ranges, all the way from 100 up to 500. You don't need the most expensive, but I wouldn't go on the cheap end. The bow and the rangefinder go hand in hand. I would get one with angle compensation because most of the shots that you'll end up taking in the field are not going to be on flat ground, so you're going to want that factored in. I would find somewhere right in the middle. You can get really nice ones from 180 to 250, but this is something that I would factor into your budget that you're going to want to make an investment in because, like I said, a bow and a rangefinder go hand in hand. I've been hunting for as long as I can remember, and I still sometimes try to guess the distance from a deer to me before I range it, and there's times that I'm way off. So I think this is one of the most important things that you're gonna need, and not just for a hunt, but even in your backyard right from the beginning. Once we get to the episode 4 where we kind of show you how to practice and give you some tips, this will be used right from the beginning. I would say don't leave the bow shop without one. Okay, so second thing that's most important, a release. Again, you're gonna wanna try to find right in that middle ground. They can be $60 all the way up to hundreds of dollars. I would say, again, factor into your budget and do a little bit of research before. So you have multiple different types of releases. You have a wrist release that slides on and tightens and you use your index finger to release your arrow. You have a thumb release, which you grip into your hand, usually have a strapping around your release and you use your thumb to release. And then you have a back tension, which releasing the arrow comes from a motion. I would say at the beginning, for a beginning hunter, you're gonna want either a thumb release or a wrist release for 2 reasons. Back tension release, I feel like that's not something that you should begin with. Maybe if you go into competition or target archery, then you can use one then, but I think for hunting, especially initially, I would say thumb release or wrist release. And do a little research and figure out which one that you think you would like best. I say whatever you start with is usually what's gonna become more familiar to you and something that you're gonna use for years. I used a wrist release in the beginning, years later switched to a thumb release, and now I'm back to a wrist release, which is something I will probably use forever. Another piece of equipment that I would invest in, do not go on the cheap side. Third, along with your peep sight and your D-loop, I would have your rest installed in the bow shop. It takes a little bit of effort to get it perfectly lined up. That's something that they can help you do and again, get your rest really nice and set perfectly. I would say that's one of the most important things to have somebody help you with here at the beginning. And there's 2 different types of rest. So you have a whisker biscuit like I have on this bear bow right now, which is just your arrow sits right on top of bristles and it shoots right through. They say that you'll lose a little velocity and accuracy using a whisker biscuit over a drop away. I would say that probably doesn't factor in as much until you get to 40 plus yards. So if you want to start with a whisker biscuit or your ready to hunt package comes with one, don't worry about that right from the beginning. I think it's more important to have somebody help you set it up in shop than whether you start with a whisker biscuit or a drop away. And again, you can always upgrade, you can always go back to a shop, and you can always invest in one of those later. They can get very expensive. And I think if you're somebody that is planning on shooting to 60 plus yards, it would probably be in your best interest to eventually transition into a drop away rest. Fourth, your sight. Your sight is just going to attach right to your riser with a couple screws. Most of the ready to hunt packages are going to come with a sight where your screws that let you adjust laterally and vertically, those screws are going to be anchored into plastic. If you over tighten, they're going to strip. Things are going to be moving around. That's the last thing you want when you're talking about your sight. As you're hunting, getting in and out of the field, things can happen. You can drop your bow, you can bump it. You want everything to be perfectly stable. You want to budget in to be on right above the budget bow setup sight. Something where everything on it is mostly metal. The screws are anchoring into metal. You can tighten everything down really good and nothing's going to shift and move on you. I think this Tactic Micro from CBE around $80, $90 is one of the best sights that you can get for the price. So you have two different types of sights. You have a fixed pin sight and you have an adjustable sight. So a fixed pin is you're gonna have a couple pins that are on the inside of this housing that are gonna be set at a specific yardage so that after you range find your target or your critter, you will be able to use one of those pins that matches the distance that you ranged. For me, as a whitetail hunter, I do not have the time to range adjust an adjustable sight. I want everything to be right where it is. I don't want to have to adjust anything. If you're hunting muley in open field or an elk on a mountainside and you're planning on shooting anywhere from 20 up to 80, maybe I would go with an adjustable sight. And the adjustable sight, they still come in 1, 2, even 3 pins, but you can just adjust your sight all the way from 0 up to 100 plus. I love a 5 fixed pin sight. And again, it kind of just depends on what you're hunting. So when you're assessing what sight to buy, kind of put some thought into what you're planning on using your bow for. Fixed pin sights, I would say usually people have their pins usually set from anywhere between 20 and 60 yards. This is what I would start out with for a beginner, but I think more importantly than anything is you want just a nice solid sight. Make a little investment, buy something that's nice and metal that's not gonna move on you. If the bow shop that you're at purchasing this stuff, you can actually have them help you range that top pin in at 20, and that'll kind of get you started. When we do the 4th video, we will walk you through sighting in your sight, and we can kind of help you get set up as well. But I think that's something the bow shop, if you went to the place that we recommended with a 20-yard range, I would get that set up and dialed in at 20 in the shop before you leave. All right, so number 5 is an arrow, and we're gonna have an entire video in this series dedicated to arrows and what you need. I would say at the beginning, you want to find something not too expensive. You're going to end up missing the target. I still miss the target from time to time, and you're going to probably put away a dozen arrows before you ever see the field. So make a nice investment, buy a nice arrow, but you don't need to go on the higher end and buy something that's extremely expensive. I think you need to find the graph of the manufacturer of the arrow and figure out what spine and weight they recommend for the bow setup that you choose. But again, at the bow shop, I would have them cut to your length. I'd have them glue the inserts in, and I would make sure that they have fletchings on them. All you do is have to add a field point, and you're ready to go to start slinging your first arrows. Ask them what a medium priced arrow is that's still a good durable arrow that they recommend for you, and they'll be able to help you set these up as well. All right, so on to number 6, and a lot of people have a little bit different opinions on this. Here's my assessment. A stabilizer, when I first started hunting, they had big rubber knobs on them. Some of them were completely rubber. I think the stabilizer initially was made and designed to help with vibration and noise dampening over balancing. So now we see a lot more, longer stabilizers, back bar stabilizers to counter the weight of the quiver and the sight. But there is so many different types of stabilizers made out of different materials with different weights, lengths, and I think more than not, people are using them to balance the bow. You mess around with them. You can buy a couple of them, figure out what weight works for you. Again, they are meant to be different lengths, different weights to get a different feel for the hunter, and you just kind of make those adjustments yourself. I've actually shot several bows without a stabilizer on it, so I think the stabilizer to me is one of the least important parts of the bow. And again, I'm shooting most of my shots at 40 and under. I would say, and I've read that the stabilizer does not necessarily factor in until you're above 60 plus yards at shooting. Usually the stabilizers will just screw in right to the front. If you want a back bar stabilizer, they'll have something, usually a hole in the back where you can get the back bar stabilizer on. Again, it's all preference. Do your research. I wouldn't spend as much money on this in the beginning. I would say you could probably spend the least amount of money on your stabilizer and you'll be okay to start. And then the last thing, number 7, is your quiver. So this quiver right here is probably one of the cheapest quivers you can get. I harvested all 6 deer that I shot this year in 2023 with this hanging off the side of the bow. It's easy to attach from one bow to the next. It's to hold your arrows and protect yourself from your broadheads. The quiver is something, again, you can probably go on the cheaper side here at the beginning to save yourself some money, or to be able to redirect some of that money to some of the other parts that you want to make good investments in, and you can always go back and get a nicer one later. Some people like the ones that come from the manufacturer that kind of match the bow. There's stationary quivers that don't come off, and then there's ones like this that can come off. You can hang them in your tree. But I think the quiver, again, is something that you just find one that you like that fits your bow. It doesn't have to be the nicest one here at the beginning. Whatever bow you choose and whatever setup you use to go with, it does not factor in to the success of your shooting or your hunt nearly as much as how much you practice with the bow. Make sure that you get your daily reps in. Make sure you practice as much as you can. And I promise you, consistency will come in time, but it just depends on how much effort that you put into whatever setup you decide to use. Circle back once again, along with the D-loop and the Peep sight, I would have them install your rest and shop. You can go home and put on your sight, and we can walk you through how to get that first pen dialed in. Your stabilizer is completely preference. You can shoot a bow with it, without it, whatever you'd like. Same with the quiver at this point. I think the other pieces are so much more important, especially your release and your rangefinder. So make sure and watch the next video where we'll get you dialed into 20. We'll give you some tips to practicing in your backyard, and we'll get those first daily reps in. So hopefully now you know where you're headed, you have an idea of what you're going to be purchasing, you have a little bit better terminology and understanding of the product. We couldn't be more excited for you to purchase your first bow. What a cool venture you're about to embark on. Bow hunting is definitely something special. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. We love interaction. If we can answer, we will. If not, I will find the answer for you. We are here to help. Make sure and remember that. Hey, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, hit that like button, leave us a comment. I love interaction. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have so much more to come. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook for updates of anything else that we're going to review. If there's something that you're interested in, hit those links below and check them out. And make sure, no matter what your setup is, what bow you're shooting, get your reps in on the daily. We'll see you next week.